If you know me, you'll know I am very, very interested in professions as well as class design. They're about the only two things I focus on this channel for the most part. And while I think the profession work order system they're adding will be very convenient and quite possibly a game changer as far as the economy goes, it's not in and of itself interesting or exciting to me. I mean, it might make professions more important in the eyes of Blizzard, and that would be an exciting possibility because then Blizzard would focus on making professions more fun and more varied, making sure every profession has lots of stuff they can craft with every patch, which is something they don't always do. But even if the work order system has this effect, in and of itself, work orders look to me like they're convenient, they look practical, they look like very good quality of life, and they look like a step in the right direction for the game's economy. And if I were in charge of professions in World of Warcraft, I'd be congratulating my team for thinking of it and implementing it. And I expect that I'll be using it on a regular basis as a player. But, well, I personally, as a player, don't find work orders interesting or exciting in and of themselves. The things that would get me excited about professions are having a large variety of craftable items. Shadowland failed, at least in this, for engineers. Bringing elemental reagents and mineable gems back. Bringing Warlords of Draenor-style upgrade tokens back. And making sure flavor matters with the items that we craft. The announcements that we actually got included profession specializations, crafting tables, crafting quality, auto-swapped equipable profession-specific gear, new profession-specific stats, recrafting, and finishing reagents. And it's hard to tell exactly what finishing reagents are. But a few of those announcements are really promising as far as having a lot of variety goes, and flavor for that matter. Profession specializations are kind of like professions within professions, a little like how class specializations are like classes within classes. Bringing specializations back means there will need to be more variety in the kinds of recipes that we can craft. There will need to be a decent-sized laundry list of items that each specialization can craft, and the items that one specialization can craft will need to be distinct from the items that the other specializations can craft. I mean, that's how it worked with professions back when profession specs were a thing. I mean, for engineering, the two specializations were Goblin Engineering and Gnomish Engineering, back when those specializations mattered the most in vanilla and to the lesser extent the Burning Crusade. Goblin Engineering meant a large variety of bombs and explosive gadgets, while Gnomish Engineering meant a large variety of energy and disabling-based gadgets, like a battle pet, a net launcher, a shrink ray, and, of course, a death ray. Back when these specializations mattered, the cool factor kind of evened out, more or less. The Goblin bombs were more impressive than the gadgets overall, but the Death Ray's cool factor and single-target burst damage ended up picking up the slack. It was a lot more imbalanced in Goblin Engineering's favor in the Burning Crusade, but, well, that doesn't seem like the kind of mistake they can afford to make in Dragonflight, and they sure seem to know it. Anyhow, since profession specializations are one of Dragonflight's back-of-the-box features, Blizzard's going to aim to have these specializations matter as much as possible. Having a large variety of craftable items was integral to making the profession specializations have meaning, and making sure those craftable items have flavors that are different from each other is also important, so variety and flavor are finally making a comeback. Now, I mentioned flavor because of a thing that happened in Warlords of Draenor. There were elemental reagents in that expansion that all too often didn't have their flavor carry over into the items that they crafted. For example, Sorcerous Air was needed to craft Blackrock Rifling, which was an engineering weapon upgrade token that let you boost the item level of a crafted gun. But how's Blackrock Rifling actually air-themed at all? If they'd called it electroplated black rifling, at least that would have reminded us of electricity, storms, and air, but no, they didn't even tweak the naming to get the flavor to work, even when that's all that would have been necessary. And there's plenty of other examples from Warlords where they didn't carry the flavor of the reagents into the finished products. Like Sorcerous Water, it could be used to craft 25 different items, but only a few of them actually had the water flavor carry over. The Stone of the Waters, the infra blue blocker lenses, and Mark of the Frost Wolf at least had some waterish or at least vaguely waterish themes to them. But how do the names Hexweave Essence, Powerful Talidite Amplifier, Powerful Burnished Essence, or Bidirectional Fizzle Reducer sound like they have anything to do with water? Sorcerous Earth was even worse. Only Mark of the Black Rock and Stone of Earth really had that flavor forward in them. True Steel Essence, Precision Scope Tuning Kit, Hexweave Bag, none of those really have any earth flavor to them. And I could go on and on about this lack of flavor making a difference in Warlords of Draenor. I could even go on to talk about how Legion's reagents had almost no flavor to begin with, so they couldn't carry their flavor onto the final product. And what little flavor they did have didn't even make sense. But you get the idea. Flavor should matter, and all too often flavor failed to matter in Legion and Warlords of Draenor. Of course, the biggest problem with Warlords when it came to professions, which overshadowed this cosmetic yet important problem of flavor, was the daily cooldown reagents that professions out and out revolved around. Thank goodness those never made a comeback, and I am so hoping they won't come back in Dragonflight. There is one thing from Warlords that I would like to see make a comeback, though, and that's upgrade tokens. If you're wondering what that True Steel Essence, Hexweave Essence, and Burnished Essence were all about, those were items that you could craft in Warlords of Draenor and then apply to a piece of crafted armor, and they'd increase the item level of that armor piece. Predictably, True Steel Essence upgraded armor that had been created by blacksmiths, Burnished Essence upgraded armor that had been crafted by leatherworkers, and Hexweave Essence upgraded armor that had been crafted by tailors. Heck, Blackrock Rifling was the upgrade token that could be used to boost the item level on crafted guns. Well, more like the one crafted gun that existed in Warlords. There were also tokens to upgrade engineering goggles and other kinds of weapons, like Steel Forged Essence was for smith-made weapons and True Steel Essence was for smith-made armor. The naming was a lot less confusing at the time because every weapon that a smith could craft in Warlords started with the word Steel Forged. But anyway, it seems like something kind of like upgrade tokens is coming back in Dragonflight, except that instead of upgrade tokens being a separate crafting recipe, you can instead take an item that you or someone else has already crafted and recraft it. Sort of run it through its own crafting recipe again, but this time give it different optional reagents, probably, hopefully, increase its item level and keep the same piece of gear if you like it. Personally, I love the idea of being able to take a piece of gear that I have made and that I like and keep it relevant and cutting edge as the expansion progresses. As an engineer, I have loved crafting goggles that help me get ahead in the gearing up, and I'd love to be able to keep the goggles that I've crafted relevant, even as raid tiers keep coming. I mean, those goggles, well, maybe this is silly, but they kind of have some sentimental value to me. Bringing upgrade tokens back from Warlords of Draenor, or at least bringing back the ability to do what the upgrade tokens did, is a very welcome thing. And it was only after I recorded all of that other stuff that Blizzard said exactly what I didn't want them to say. That the recrafting system was not intended to be an item upgrade system. Well, hopefully Blizzard is willing to pivot based on feedback. We shall see. At this point, I hesitate to say I'd like to see elemental reagents make a comeback from Warlords because Warlords' implementation of elemental reagents was wonky at best. I'll talk more about that later in this video, so instead I will say I'd like to see elemental reagents make a comeback from the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King, since those implementations of elemental reagents were actually good. And when you look closely at the alchemy screenshot that they gave us during their announcements, you'll see it mentions Awakened Fire, Awakened Earth, Awakened Air, and both Awakened Frost and Awakened Ice. Which one will be the canonical water-themed reagent? I don't care! I like either one, because finally elemental reagents are getting a proper comeback. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Elemental reagents are a great and flavorful way to grab some of the magic in the world of Azeroth and infuse it into our crafted items. Heck, there were plenty of other flavors of elemental item besides the classic 4 water, air, fire, earth. Like Cataclysm had volatile life alongside fire and air and the rest. Wrath of the Lich King had crystallized shadow alongside crystallized life and crystallized fire and such. The Burning Crusade had motes of mana and primal mana alongside shadow, life, and the classic 4. You could even make the case that Vanilla had a holy-themed elemental reagent with the righteous orbs that dropped in a specific part of Stratholme where you were fighting against the Scarlet Crusade. Considering that righteous orbs are the exact kind of reagent they're thinking about bringing back, reagents that require you to go someplace specific to collect them, hopefully some of the items they're bringing back will have the same kinds of flavor that life, shadow, mana, and holy elemental reagents once had. There's yet another good sign about the reagent flavor in the same screenshot. The item whose recipe was selected in the screenshot, the Potion of Frozen Focus, used Awakened Frost as a reagent. That item naming is carrying the flavor of the reagents forward into the items that they craft, and it's doing it beautifully. Warlords and Legion and Battle for Azeroth did a terrible job with reagent to crafted item flavor. Shadowlands did okay with it, but now, along with the apparent return of elemental reagents, it looks like the fine art of carrying flavor from reagent to final product is back. I hope, oh so much, that this will not be a repeat of what they did in Mists of Pandaria, where for a little while during development they were going to have elemental reagents. The pre-alpha elemental reagents revolved around the 4 seasons instead of the 4 elements, but then they dropped elemental items altogether during development. I would have been fine with a 4 seasons reagent motif in live Mists of Pandaria. That could have provided plenty of flavor and plenty of variety for the items, just as well as the earth, water, air, fire elements would have. But Blizzard replaced that nice, flavorful system that would have been new and different and had loads of potential with the terrible, boring, flavorless Mote of Harmony and Spirit of Harmony system. No flavor at all with that excuse for a reagent. Clearly, that whole system was just an excuse to get people to grind reagents in outdoor content. I am so hoping history does not repeat and Blizzard does not drop the awakened elements during Dragonflight's development, and that we will be crafting with awakened air, awakened fire, awakened earth, and awakened water or frost or ice or what have you in Dragonflight. Though a little thought occurred to me. Back in Vanilla, the 3 specializations for leatherworking were tribal leatherworking, which crafted intellect leather gear and resistance gear, dragon scale leatherworking, which crafted mail, and here's the kicker, elemental leatherworking, which crafted agility leather, armor, and resistance gear. I wonder if elemental items are coming back because of elemental leatherworking. Of course, a sizable chunk of the dichotomies we have in play here simply doesn't exist anymore. Leather items will provide either intellect or agility depending on which your spec uses, so the tribal versus elemental flavor is gone. Plus, resistance hasn't been a relevant stat since around Cataclysm or Wrath of the Lich King, so even more flavor is out too. So maybe I'm wrong about this guess? Dragon Scale looks more relevant than ever, so maybe it'll be just Elemental and Dragon Scale. We'll have to see. I felt like I should have an aside about that for anyone who doesn't remember the specializations from Vanilla. Anyhow, the things that I care about in professions, a wide variety of recipes, flavor being carried over from reagent to product, upgradeability of crafted items, and elemental reagents, those bases look well covered, and Dragonflight looks very promising. The only thing I don't see here that I wanted to see is bringing back Mineable Gemstones. The reason I want Mineable Gemstones back is because it was actually fun to get a pleasant surprise while I was going out mining, finding a gemstone among the items that I've dug up. If you go to mining nodes in the Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, or Cataclysm, you'll find it's not just ore that drops off in the mining nodes. Elemental reagents are fairly common. And even better than that, now and then you'll have an uncommon or even a rare gem drop off of the mining nodes. Getting those was awesome. And the variety of gemstones was also exciting and rewarding. But ever since Mists of Pandaria, mining nodes basically don't drop gemstones. And those pleasant surprises are just plain gone. In Warlords and Shadowlands, mining nodes could at least drop stone alongside ore, which is similar to vanilla, where stone was about as common as elemental reagents were in the Burning Crusade or Wrath. Plus, stone could be used for various recipes, like blasting powder for engineers, sharpening stones for smiths, and carvings for jewelers. I was glad stone made a proper comeback in Shadowlands, and I really hope mineable stone is part of Dragonflight as well. Heck, in Warlords you could make the case that mining nodes dropped both stone and elemental reagents. While the stone was only useful for handing over to your mine NPCs to turn it into more ore, there were primal spirit items that kind of were elemental reagents. I mean, like I said earlier, Warlord's elemental reagent system was pretty wonky in that you could trade primal spirits at a vendor for any one of the 4 elemental items, except that, well, generally no one did, because that same vendor sold a harder-to-get and more important reagent called Savage Blood in exchange for those same primal spirits. And you had to save your primal spirits for that Savage Blood. Spending them on elemental items felt like a waste in comparison. Which makes me hope Blizzard takes opportunity cost into account when they design recipes and vendors for Dragonflight. Anyhow, the bottom line is that, in practice, the one moat for all system didn't work in Warlords. Which is too bad. With a few minor tweaks like taking Savage Blood off of the vendor and renaming the items that you could make with elemental reagents so the flavor carries forward, the elemental reagents in Warlords could have been a functional comeback. And it's too bad we didn't have elemental reagents dropping off of mining nodes in Legion, Battle for Azeroth, and Shadowlands. Because when mining nodes drop nothing but one kind of ore, it's boring. You know another game that gets this right? Animal Crossing New Horizons. You're probably expecting me to compare Animal Crossing to World of Warcraft and use that as an argument in bringing player housing in. But honestly, the latest Animal Crossing game itself is such a strong argument for player housing that I don't need to make any arguments about it. Nintendo has already made those arguments for me. Actually, it's acquiring mineral resources in Animal Crossing that I'd like to focus on. That's a system that reminded me a lot of mining in World of Warcraft. You use your shovel to strike rocks to get minerals. And while what I'm about to say is kind of an oversimplification, for the average rock there's a 33% chance on any given hit that you'll get a stone, a 33% chance that you'll get clay, and a 33% chance you'll get an iron nugget. That adds up to 99%, and that last 1% chance, that is a chance you will get a gold nugget. Those are a rare treat that you can use to make a few special crafting recipes that are hard to get. It's not uncommon to get no gold nuggets on any given day, so you're lucky if you get 1 gold nugget per day, and very lucky if you get 2 in the same day. Gemstones dropping from mining nodes were the exact kind of pleasant surprise that World of Warcraft used to have, that gold nuggets provide today in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Granted, a lot of other changes would need to be in place in World of Warcraft for it to make sense for gemstones to drop directly from mining nodes. More recipes would need to use gems as reagents like they did in Wrath of the Lich King and the Burning Crusade, and more items would need to have gem slots on them, again, like the Burning Crusade and Wrath, for there to really be a place for that many gemstones. Technically, there could be other things besides gems that could drop from mining nodes that could provide a lot of the same pleasant surprises, like, for example, other rare metal ores. I mean, back in the Burning Crusade, there was a chance that Eternium ore would drop off of Fel Iron nodes, and those were used in some recipes and were a welcome change. And getting the odd Progenitor Essentia is something that keeps me flying back to the northeast side of Zereth Mortis most of the times that I log on. But there's something special about having a wide variety of different colored gems that even rare mineral ores won't fully recapture. So I'm hoping a wide variety of mineable gemstones makes a proper comeback in Dragonflight. Now, I've talked a lot about what I didn't see and what I hoped for because, well, I'm hoping that giving Blizzard this kind of feedback will help me get what I want, what I find fun. But I have to say, just about everything that I do see in the Dragonflight announcements looks very promising indeed. Each thing they've talked about and shown us in the screenshots looks like a step in the right direction, and even the parts that don't excite me are steps in the right direction, and they are taking a lot of steps. So keep the information coming, Blizzard. I can wish for more information and for more features, but everything that I'm getting, I like. Though I really do wish they'd give me an upgrade system.